philosophical, and every other matter that needs a very serious conversation. And so before we begin, I want to introduce our guest to us, and then we can get the conversation underway. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm hosting Mr. Rogers Kidia. Rogers is an economist and a program officer at Tax Justice Network Africa, TJNA. And this is a Pan-African Research and Advocacy Organization, which was established in 2007, and is the local, the Tax Justice Network Africa is a member of the Global Alliance for Tax Justice, GATJ. And so those are very interesting. It's a very interesting network and conversation. So we're going to be diving into that. Rogers is truly very passionate about poverty eradication in Kenya, in Africa. I'm going to be asking him to talk about issues of food prices, fuel prices. Why are we having to pay more for our staff at the moment, at this point in our period?
Yes.
All right. So, Rogers, welcome again, like I said, to the show.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have you back.
Happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So, before we dive into the main conversation, I would like us to, again, maybe, I know I had you, by the way, I had you here exactly 1 year ago.
Wow.
It was 24th of March.
Wow. Time really flies.
Yeah, so time moves very fast.
Yeah.
So maybe for the sake of those who are watching for the first time, you can give us a little bit of your background, and then we can get it from there.
Great. So as you've heard, my name is Rogers Kidia, and I'm happy to say that I'm a born-again Christian. I fear the Lord, and He's my personal savior. And I am an economist by training. Having worked in the industry of policy development in the last 9 to 10 years. And currently I work with the Tax Justice Network Africa as the program in charge of a program called Tax and Equity. So in that program, we are trying to support African governments and also African academies and also civil society in the region, just to come up with tax systems and tax policies that do two things. One is they promote accountability and social justice.
Yes.
And also what they do is that they are progressive in nature. And we also advocate. So there's the issue of promoting and also advocating. So our advocacy is based on tax policies and tax systems that are pro-poor.
Okay.
In their outcome.
Yes.
So our focus is mainly on how we can work and support the African dream to come alive.
Absolutely. I love that, and I love the fact that your organization has this African scope.
Yes.
And you're looking at how you can help.
Yeah.
Advance the African cause, the African dream.
Yes.
I think that's very, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you follow this conversation, Rogers has been traveling around Africa. He tells me the last 2 months he's been to 9 countries.
Yes.
9 countries. So he brings on the table, a lot of insight in terms of not just what is happening in Kenya, but what's happening in Africa, in some of the countries in Africa. After this, he tells me he's going to go to another 4 countries. And so let's ask Rogers a lot of questions, and so that he can answer. He can tell us why we are in the problem we are in. So 2 things: tax advocacy and promotion of tax. That is proper and stuff like that.
Yes.
And social justice.
Yes.
Because first of all, it begins with social justice.
It begins with social justice.
So, and maybe Rogers, for a young listener, by the way, Rogers, you'll be surprised. I have some youngsters that follow me.
Yes.
And they love to listen to this program.
Yeah. So
when we talk about social justice, so it's good to expound that a little bit. So that, not that our listeners are naive, but it's important. These are terms thrown around.
So because most of you guys have gone to school and you've you've learned a bit of theory. There's this common theory, it's called the social contracts theory.
Yes.
And this social contract theory was developed by two individuals. Three. There's Webb and John Locke.
Yes.
Some Westerners a little bit. And the focus is that governments, people at some point decided that in their normal state, when they are individually doing things, they have three things. One is their focus generally is on fame. They are looking for fame. Secondly, they are looking generally for safety.
Mm-hmm.
And then thirdly, they are looking at things to do with their own development as a people.
Yes.
But because these things are usually private
Yes.
and self-interested,
Yeah.
people saw that over time that was not a good way of managing themselves. That's why they now offered or they donated these rights to a body which is now called government.
Yes.
And the expectation is that government is going to provide for them, is going to ensure that there is equity in terms of transfer of things, is going to give them safety in terms of having things to do with the army,
security,
or
yes.
the defense. The three arms of government, for example, the executive, would have people who will come up with laws on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
You would have people who would come up and interpret those laws. And you would have people who would offer or donate our rights to,
mm-hmm.
who will now implement those laws on our behalf.
Yes.
So the social justice aspect is that now the expectation is that when we give you our money,
yes,
when we give you our money, because all of us, for instance, even in Africa or in Kenya, mm-hmm. all of us pay taxes.
Yes.
We pay taxes through VATs. When you buy anything, you pay taxes.
Yes.
When you are employed, you pay income taxes. So nobody can say they are not paying taxes.
Yes.
So when we pay those taxes,
mm-hmm.
we expect that the people now who have those taxes
mm-hmm.
are able to provide all these things that I've mentioned
mm-hmm.
without any form of leakages or any form of corruption in
Yes.
that. So there is that socially just system or policy that ensures that whenever we work, we think about the people.
Yeah. So social justice translating to transparent and accountable way.
Yes.
Of utilizing resources,
Yeah.
For example, taxes,
Yeah.
plus even the fact that we have, given up our right to
Yes.
self-defense,
Yeah.
and given that responsibility, handed that responsibility to government,
Yes.
to take care of security,
Yeah.
and our safety within the nation, within, where we stay.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, we are saying that government
mm-hmm.
or system, which is a social institution,
Yeah.
is to serve our interests and be accountable. So,
Yes.
and there is justice within that.
And actually, quickly, if we look at our African history,
Yes.
you would find that the idea of, for example, taxes. We used to pay taxes very long time ago. People used to give their chiefs or whatever through kaketo, or you have a pigeon, you go and give. In the Judaic systems, you'd find, for example, the government was together with the state. So you'll find people doing sacrifices there, the Levites, you had to do that. So even in our African context, we used to, there are some other communities who used to pay toll.
Yes.
Or they would go and serve the king. Mm-hmm. Others would maybe provide their land. They say the land is for the king. Mm-hmm. The whole idea was they were giving or donating all these rights that they could say this is my land or this is my cattle, but they wanted to give someone who can protect them, who can give them direction. So that is the general idea of social theory, contract theory, which now moves into social justice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're hearing, we are trying to make sure we break down some of these ideas that sometimes people gross over, and so that's very, very helpful, Rogers. Okay, so let's return to the issue of your organization, Tax Justice Network Africa.
Yes.
You have basically said that you basically focus on two main areas.
Yes.
That is the advocacy and promotion.
Yeah.
Of policies. Tax policies and stuff like that. And you have explained why taxes comes in. Justice comes in. Now, tell us about something that I realize is part and parcel of your policy, and maybe you need to break it down for us. We may not spend so much time on it. This whole issue of illicit financial flows and how they affect African economies.
I will start by warning all of us. This is not a fancy thing that, for example, when you talk about food, when you talk about health, everybody's ears just come up. But I will shock you that it is actually affecting all these things, so the health and the food and all that are like the outcomes of what IFFs can cause. So illicit financial flows has various ways of how things can be done, but it speaks to two things majorly. One is about corporate malpractice, whereby now the resources in Africa are taken away, or if we are supposed to have resources here in Kenya, our resources, some people would come, or there are people who transfer these resources outside. That's why it is illicit flow. So it is moving illicitly. We are not gaining from the flow.
So for example, large corporates transferring their profits and investing them elsewhere, or just basically withdrawing their investments, and sometimes it can be done so illicitly that actually they leave a shell company here who are struggling. So
I like to explain it using a certain scandal that happened in 2006. You must have heard about a certain scandal. It was called Panama Papers scandal. So during those leaks, it was leaks of millions of documents that showed a number of things. One, issues about tax lodging by corporates. Issues to do with systemic corruption that was happening in governance across the world. Issues to do with people taking advantage or entering deals with governments and fleecing governments of money. And during that period, it was estimated through those documents that around $500 billion has been lost through this tax lodging. So you find a lot of organizations, these multinational organizations, they don't pay their taxes. What they will do generally, they used an example. One of the leaks was, which is covered everywhere, you can find everywhere, is the issue of Nike. So Nike had these many companies across Africa, globally, everywhere.
Even China, Asia,
even China and all that. But they had this interesting farm in Bermuda. So this is how it works. You find these multinational companies, they have physical locations in operative countries. And then they have a certain shell company in these low tax areas, or what they are called tax havens. Tax havens are majority these islands that either former or current colonies of United Kingdom. And you'll find majority of them, they have zero taxes in terms of corporate taxes. So you'll find industries forming companies there. They form a company there. And then in the countries of their operation, for example, here in Kenya, maybe Nike makes $30 billion. So it charges, so there are these intangible assets, things to do, for example, patents, royalties, copyrights, and all that. So they ascribe all royalties and patents to that company in Bermuda, whereby they have zero taxation. And then now, that company demands payment of royalties, and because these intangible assets are not based on the law of demand and supply, whereby if you increase price, demand goes the other way. So they can come up with any figure. So they can say our royalties are this, and they demand from the parent these physical companies. So these physical companies pay royalties from their profits.
Yes.
So you'll get $30 billion in terms of profits in Kenya, and then say that maybe 28 billion was for paying royalties back to the mother organizations.
Yes.
So that means that taxable income or taxable taxability of that organization is only 2 billion.
Yes.
So that is now all issue now of illicit financial flows in one statement, whereby now people are shifting tax liability, are shifting the resources and everything going outside. And that in itself is transfer pricing. We also have, just shortly, briefly, the issue of, you would find, for instance, in countries like here, there's another organization I want to mention, but it's a betting company. So, because profits in some companies, if it's private firms, are ascribed to individuals.
Yes.
So a company would come, have a Kenyan name, and they put up a lot of information, and they make lots of billions, and then the people at the front are Kenyans or local people.
Yes.
But when you look later, when you come and discover, you find that a majority of the owners of such entities are actually what? Foreign. So in that particular country, the person who was speaking, who was claiming to be the owner, only had 0.09%. And so,
shareholding.
Yes, so when profits are made, they are shifted to another country.
Yes.
So there are two issues here. One, corporate malpractice.
Yes.
And then the wealthy amongst us who are now causing these issues of beneficial ownership, whereby you don't know who benefits from that.
Absolutely.
And then we finally have this issue now, which compounds everything here, is because countries, because we want these multinational companies to come to...
Yeah, FDI, foreign direct investment.
Yes, for instance, all of us are saying, we need someone to come and invest in Kenya.
Yes.
We have this Big Four agenda and all that.
Yeah.
The other country, let's say Rwanda or our neighbors, whatever, also them, they want these big push investments.
Yes.
What ends up happening is that we now start giving all these people tax breaks. We are giving them subsidies to come and invest in our countries.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you find because we are fearing, they will go to Rwanda, they will go to whatever.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, Rogers, actually, it's true because like I've had a lot of mentions.
Yeah.
There was a cement company.
Yeah.
They wanted to invest in Kenya.
Yeah.
And they had to go to Rwanda.
Yeah.
Somebody else wanted to invest in in some manufacturing or whatever else. They went to Uganda.
Yeah.
So and by the way, there is actually there are true cases.
Yeah.
There are cases of where apparently there is a big manufacturer of what you call it, houseware,
Yes.
toiletries and stuff like that are being manufactured in Uganda and shipped back here in Kenya.
Yeah.
And the story is that, look, the local, leaders would not let these guys do it. And the other country was offering better terms in terms of,
So our work has been over time to ensure to say that the issue of illicit financial flows cannot be addressed by one country.
Yes.
Because if we don't work together and ensure that we get the right taxes,
yes,
so that there's nobody who can say, I'll go to country X because their taxes or corporate taxes is lower.
yes,
And when they pay those taxes, the people of that country do not benefit. It's the multinational companies that benefit.
Okay.
So the idea is those corporations and ensuring that there is justice in terms of our people in Africa. We receive enough taxes for development. And then the last issue now, again, we've talked about the issue of multinational companies. When it comes to this wealth taxation,
yes,
so these extremely rich people,
yes,
we had the second scandal,
the
which
high
covered
net worth,
that.
individuals, yes,
Which covered, so the Panama leak of 2016 covered the corporate malpractice. So how these multinational companies don't pay taxes, they shift taxes, transfer pricing and all that.
Yeah.
So the Pandora Papers of 2020 21, just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now focused on unmasking all these wealthy people.
Yes.
Who now get from the beneficial ownership. So they get monies from, or they run businesses in a certain country.
Yes.
And then they transfer their profits to these offshore accounts.
Yes.
So we don't get to tax them. They say our liability is not here, so you don't get to tax them.
Yes.
And so you find a lot of taxes are lost that way. And for us, we are advocating on coming up with systems that are accountable, that covers for that. Because right now, for example, in Kenya, the contribution of tax, you'd find the highest contribution of tax revenue in Kenya. Number one, 29% is VAT. Number two is income tax.
And even while you're just mentioning those two,
yes,
VAT and income tax,
yes,
and I think it's important for our viewers to know, for example, VAT,
yes,
you said 29%.
Yes.
That's our own local money. Anybody
Yes.
who consumes anything within our country
Yes.
is contributing 29%
Yes.
to our local kitty,
Yes.
which is a very significant figure.
That's so big when you compare elsewhere. That's a serious number.
And then now the other one is income
tax. And you remember for the income tax, when you see the numbers, KRA numbers, they say only 3 or actually it was 2.1
percent.
No, million Kenyans. 2.1 to 3 million Kenyans only pay taxes.
Yes.
So what about the other 47? So there is that problem now because you wonder, when you look at all this, we don't see any corporate taxes.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
That's something interesting. So if you say, because the income tax contribution is around 25%, so 29 plus 25, that is 54, over 54%.
Yes.
54% of our tax revenues,
yes,
are based on people, Kenyans themselves.
Yes.
And yet, this VAT is higher. Who are these people selling these goods? Where are these monies that all of us are spending on? Where is it? Because in proper countries, you find the contribution of, because they are big firms, they
yes,
should be paying a lot of taxes.
Yes.
And they don't. So because of that, the inequality part that now I'm focusing, the equity part,
yes,
is that you'll find, because these are called consumption taxes, income and also
so
VAT,
the burden
is
heavier
on the poor person.
Absolutely.
So when you increase the prices of food wherever,
yeah,
the people who are shouldering this are actually
the ordinary people.
The ordinary.
I mean, the ordinary consumer.
The ordinary consumer.
And I mean, across the board. So, because everyone has to consume anyway.
Yeah.
So, while actually there is opportunity for the owners of large corporations or large corporations for them to take their rightful share of shouldering that tax burden.
Yes.
And so you're saying that's where there is a very big shortfall there.
Big shortfall.
And by the way, how does that, as we wrap that up, how does that compare across various countries in Africa?
So you'd find this is very interesting, and this also speaks about the issues of these multilateral negotiations or treaty making and whatever. You've been seeing a lot of treaty making. For example, you heard of an EPA, the partnership agreements, entrepreneur partnership agreements between Kenya and UK, Kenya and US, Kenya and whatever.
Yes.
So that is where the problem usually starts.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a keen eye, and that is what we are providing, and we've done cases, we've taken government to court, and some of the things have been expunged. Maybe the media or Kenyans don't know.
Yeah.
And this is what we've been doing across Africa.
Yes.
Because you'd find that we have, unfortunately, some people in our governments or our negotiators everywhere. People are just self-interested.
Yes.
So you usually need that keen eye. But now how it compares is the problem usually starts there.
Yes.
Because during those negotiations, you'd find people signing these tax breaks, these subsidies, exemptions, and all of that. And then at the end of the day, you find now most of the African countries who don't have capacity, especially in Central Central and West Africa are really suffering, even more than us.
Oh, okay. We're going to hold you. I'm going to hold you, Rogers, there. We're going to take a short break. We're talking about tax justice. We're looking at also the issue to do with the fact that within this election cycle, we always have a problem. So we're going to return. When we come back, we're going to talk about why do we have to have a financial and economic crisis during the elections. But now we have laid the background. So don't go away. Take a short break. Grab yourself a cup of coffee. And let's get back to the conversation in a few minutes, in a minute or so. God bless you. Don't go away.
This whole issue of gender deviance is simply an expression of the fallen nature.
How then do we subject this desire, this need to explore?
The sinful nature is overcome by the cross of Jesus Christ. He was representing the passions that we struggle with as they were being nailed there, so that we may be.
Hello everyone, my name is Blessing Kendi, 11 years old, the author of this book, A Child with a Vision. I want to change 1 billion children in the world. I ask you to support my talent through buying this book at 300 Kenya shillings. My book is about the importance of education, how to use money wisely, discovering and growing talents, how to know God. I also have a vision for the needy and orphan, so I ask friends, churches and companies to help me support them through buying this book for them. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are having a very serious conversation here. We are talking about the economics of Kenyan elections. Why are we paying more for stuff? Before we went to the break, we laid a kind of a background, and my guest Rogers is giving us some of the underlying issues to do with tax, some of the loopholes that exist, and why sometimes, you find some things coming out in the public domain, scandals, Panama Papers, some of the agreements you see the president signing up, which end up disadvantaging Kenyans, and the fact that some of our taxes are really, a huge burden on the local, population. While actually some of that burden could be shouldered by other people who are actually not doing so. But I want us to focus in this second session on why we are paying more for stuff.
Yes.
So, Rogers, I think the background you've laid is very good.
Okay.
We know why some of these problems are happening. I think I was going to ask you about the loopholes, but I think you've explained that. So let's talk about food prices.
Yeah.
Why are we paying more for food right now? And especially cooking oil.
Cooking oil.
Yes.
Yeah, my friends everywhere, people are saying now that there's no need of kukaanga chakula, you just chemusha. Yeah, and this is a problem. I want to assure you it's happening not just in Kenya, but across Africa and globally.
Yes.
And I will explain. So generally, when you talk about prices, prices is a factor of many things.
Yeah.
And it has to do with, for example, there's the supply side and the demand side of things, of a product.
Basic and economics.
Yeah, so basic economics. When someone talks about the supply side, they talk about supply chains.
Yes.
So for a supply chain, you have a mixture of three or four things. One is the production. So the production cost is what determines the price.
The price that comes out of that.
Still there is the issue of distribution, moving from where it is being produced to where it's being sold. And from the distribution, there is also the retailing.
Yeah.
And packaging and all that. There's all these costs that are related. And each and every stage of this, they have a constituent cost.
Yes.
So it's not just like one issue that you can point up and say, this is the problem. And then when you stop at the supply side, when you go to the demand side, this is where now the ability, the people to demand something.
Yes.
So if it is a staple food or a staple food in a certain country, for example, ugali or whatever we consume in Kenya, then it means that the demand is very high.
Yes.
There is a constant demand. Either it's constant or rising.
Right.
So people have the ability, and that demand is also affected by a number of things. One is the purchasing power. So do people have the ability to buy that product?
Yeah, absolutely.
And secondly, the access. Is it accessible to them and their beliefs and all that? So a number of things under demand. So again, it's not a straight line. So coming back with that understanding now, there are a number of things that has happened in Kenya. Generally, when it comes to election period, I'll start with a generic election period.
Yes.
3 or 4 things usually happen.
Right.
One is that there is usually fear and uncertainty, especially in Kenya. And this fear and uncertainty they affect the supply chain.
Okay.
So a producer would say, wow, if I produce a lot, especially when it comes to food,
yes,
they have a life cycle.
Yes.
Maybe they will be fighting and whatever happens.
Yeah.
So I would rather keep my production to a level that is manageable. Again, on the other side, on demand, because of fear, people usually stockpile.
Yes.
Both the retailers or the demanders or consumers, people stockpile.
Yeah. So even we could say for example, a midro agent could say, for example, stockpile a lot of stuff. Like sometimes fuel companies actually just buy a lot of fuel and put it in their tanks and wait for these prices to just keep dancing around.
Yes, because our politics, unfortunately, has been grappled with this fear of violence, and we don't know what happens.
Yes.
So because of this, now when you look at the terminology, because again, remember, supply and demand. So when many people are demanding from this side, they demand, there's a constant demand, and then the people who are producing, they fear because of their products. So that means supply goes down, demand goes up. Yeah. And what happens? Prices shoot.
Absolutely.
So generally that usually happens. Then secondly, there's the aspect now of the issue of money supply.
Yes.
Or politicians, unfortunately, again in Kenya, what we usually do, we have this idea culture.
The handout culture.
Handout culture. So this handout culture means that during the political time, people have to spend. So the politicians, things are being printed. There was this expose the other day in a certain media company that was talking about bringing crowds. People are paying to bring crowds.
Paid crowds.
Paid crowds. So a lot of investment in terms of just money supply, liquid money.
Actually, yes. So and those of you that are watching, if you've done a entry-level bachelor's program in economics, you know the supply and demand aspect. Plus, it's also the supply and demand of cash as well. Cash flow, once you pumped money into an economy, obviously you're going to stimulate inflation.
Because too much money is chasing something. Everybody has money. If we were buying land, all of us came with 1 million. Yeah. Then the seller say, oh, people have money. You will, of course, shoot to get the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what usually happens generally.
Yes.
And then lastly, in some circumstances, this is usually what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When people are closing shop are closing shop. In some instances, this one I put a very big caveat.
Yeah.
You would find the people, the officers around are trying, when they see, oh, I'm about to exit, so they try and make the most. If because in our budgetary system, if you don't spend money, the monies have to be returned to the exchequer.
Yes.
And sometimes because of activity, electioneering activity, you'll find most of these either counties and even national MDAs, MDAs, the ministries and departments and agencies, they'd find maybe because of the political activity, they cannot absorb the money. So the absorption rate is very low. So they can't spend the money, so people come up with creative ways.
So they send the whole ministry department to Naivasha or Mombasa for training.
Yes, they say we purchased a glass for water for 1 million shillings.
Yes.
So they do those creative things, and that's why during this period, because now that person is quoting 1 million shillings for a glass, and you are as a retailer, you want to buy it at 10 shillings. Of course, the prices will shoot.
Yes. So basically, you're saying there are underlying forces that are behind shifting in pricing, especially rise in prices. And I think most of the forces actually work more towards, escalation of prices and inflation.
Prices.
Inflation is the catch-all for all that, various elements in the pricing mechanisms going up.
And sometimes there's the actual inflation that will be recorded, for example, with the CBK. And there's the perceived inflation. Yes. So because of perceived inflation, now people either want to buy very fast, fearing things will happen.
Absolutely. Actually, by the way, you're absolutely right. So that's why economics is a very complex subject. Those of you that are following this conversation and you're bachelor's or master's student, I guess you're getting some of your tutoring with us here. So, Rogers, So for example, do you think, for example, like vegetable oil, which is one of those things, the prices have literally doubled?
Yes.
And then also the other day I read a report where fuel prices have gone up, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
What's going on in these other countries?
So now, that was the normal election period.
Yes.
But this period is completely abnormal. So there are so many international things that are happening. One, I'll start by giving us a context. All of us know that in the last 2 years or 3, we've been having this pandemic, COVID-19. So during that period, a number of things happened.
Yes.
One, what we talked about, the supply chain. Supply chains, people were no longer meeting, people are not doing activity, even consumption went down.
Yes.
So production of things started going down.
Yes.
So people started not producing. Some products actually went down. So many businesses just went down. And it took a lot of toll, both especially for producers.
Yes.
And on the other side, the purchasing power of individuals. So many people lost their jobs. So many people could not afford even to support themselves globally. Globally. We are talking globally. And interesting, the numbers, it's called the UN Food Index.
Yes.
It indicated that around in 2017, just before 2019, when you compare the prices in 2017, global food prices, and the prices this year, there's been a jump by 47% globally on food prices.
47%.
That is almost by half.
Yes.
That's a lot. That's a
jump
lot of jump
in food prices across the globe.
So when it comes, there are a number of food items globally that has been affected. The first one is on oil, cooking oil, energy, that is gas and oil.
Yes.
Thirdly, eggs.
Yes.
Grains.
Yes.
Grains, and also some other connected products. So I'll start with the cooking oil. So for the cooking oil, so we had cooking oil is majorly from palm oil and sunflower.
Yeah.
So sunflower, we know what happens. Sunflower is produced by Russia and Ukraine.
Oh,
they are
my
the
goodness.
leading producers.
Yes.
They are the people who lead global by far 40%.
Okay.
Global supply.
Yes.
And even before the entry of that problem of Russia-Ukraine problem,
Yeah.
During this period of COVID,
Yes.
the production had been affected because of consumption.
Yes.
So they were not even working, and also
They were not even
chains.
farming. You know, they had
Supply
slowed down.
chains. We didn't have these big trucks. I think people who are keen, that it's called the English Channel, when they saw the activity of these big trucks that transport goods across the world, most of them were not functioning. So even distribution was a problem.
Yes.
And because of that, production went down.
Okay.
And when we came back, because of vaccination, because now I point my one finger and I'll talk about it shortly. But because of that issue, now it was compounded by the Ukraine-Russia problem.
Yes.
That's why there was a jump in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yes.
When the problem of Ukraine started.
Yeah.
So now we no longer get supplies from Ukraine because, of course, they are fighting.
Yeah.
Russia, there have been so many embargoes that have been put against Russia. So even their supplies are not reaching us.
Yes.
So that is the first thing on oil. On grains, again, the leading suppliers for wheat globally, Ukraine.
But
Followed
I think what our viewers need to hear is the fact that, first of all, Ukraine as a country is a very, very large country.
Yes.
Very huge physical block.
Yes.
And Ukraine is like the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
It's the most fertile region in Europe.
Yes.
So that's where they are the best farmers.
Yeah.
They have the best soils in Europe in particular.
Yeah.
Here in Africa, we also have good places to farm.
Yes.
But so people need to know that.
Yeah. But for them, what gives them the advantage, the comparative advantage,
Yes.
is the fact that they're highly mechanized.
Absolutely.
Highly mechanized, and then they don't till like ourselves in
Small pieces.
in Rift Valley,
Yes.
whereby you have small chunks of land. For them, it's thousands of acres.
Yeah.
So you have economies of scale, and because they've had these subsidies and contracts with international firms, so their supply chains is very good.
Yes.
So they can just put it on ships and it gets to Mombasa.
Yes.
And I think people might know in Kenya, or if you don't know, that 90% of our demand, or whatever we demand,
Yes.
we only produce 10%.
Yeah. So
our
90% of our input demands are met through imports. Yes.
And the leading people who provide for us, Russia and Ukraine.
Oh my goodness, don't say that.
and Ukraine. So when you saw an EPA, that partnership agreement between Kenya and Russia,
yes,
that actually, if you read your local news today, you'd see some discussion about some things being lifted between Kenya and Russia.
Yeah,
it's a global village. So now, I understand, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture is trying to look at other sources, either from Southern America and all that, but they are not as cheap as Ukraine.
The Ukrainians.
And
so even if we were, for example, if we wanted to sign up something with the Brazilians, because the Brazilians also have very large scale farming and they have capacity.
Yeah.
If they have any excess at all, because again, like you said, we have this problem of production has slowed down because of COVID. You know, everybody has the demand was slowing down. Therefore, people, kind of slowed down in terms of established capacity.
Yeah.
And then now, and then you have all these problems, and now the consumption has gone up.
I'm so happy you've mentioned Brazil, because Brazil, yes, they actually produce even more than Ukraine and Russia.
Wow.
But this is the interesting part. During the pandemic, because the consumption was not happening,
yes,
it is recorded, and that is some information we've been working on. It's been recorded that close to 30 to 40% of their production, they decided to refocus on biofuels. And that covers two things. Again, this is interesting for people to know.
Yeah.
What? Sunflower and wheat. they converted that into what? Into biofuel production.
Okay.
So during the last 2 or so years, a lot of their production is not for consumption, but it's for production of biofuels. So now, all of a sudden, everything is resuming. Demand is back to where it was, even higher.
Yes.
Before COVID.
Yes.
But now the supply
Akuna.
is not there.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are enjoying this conversation. We are having a very, very honest and deep conversation. Perhaps don't think that it is your local supermarket that is trying to pull the rug under you and milk you dry. The problem is more complicated. And so, Rogers, I am very, very glad that we can have this conversation and create all those links. So there are many forces, and we have to summarize now. So why we are paying more for stuff. So there is the political element, which we are saying
the general element for
the generic election period produces certain things, and I think we have covered that.
And actually, the numbers. Remember the president saying during the electioneering period, for example, in 2017, we lost how much? Almost 1 trillion.
1 trillion of our output.
Yes.
Okay.
Because of that electioneering.
Yeah. By the way, it was protracted because it started in July, technically, although the election was in August, but we had shut down by July.
Yes. So it is that
all the way to December.
Yes, it's that fear now that usually drives, because demand is also perception.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very, very serious thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think you better brace yourself for, a little longer, unless you're going to produce your own sunflower in your own backyard, or your own, grow your own sugarcane in the backyard to grind and provide sugar and stuff like that. So we're going to see that. So let's maybe sum up by just revisiting the issue of corruption in the public space. I know we don't have so much time, but maybe you can highlight for us how do we stop the bleeding, especially public resources? I know that's a very big question. It would need a whole session, but maybe you can highlight for us, and plus also you can tell us what some of the countries are doing in the region to try and extract themselves out of this monster of corruption. So
the issue of corruption, when it comes, there are dynamics, national dynamics, and also regional dynamics.
Okay.
So quickly on Kenya, I think for Kenya, we have the issue of prosecution and perception that actually people who steal get the consequences of stealing. So it is propagating this culture of corruption. That is on the social aspect. On the economic aspect and also systems, what we are proposing constantly is accountable systems.
Yes.
Accountability has two aspects. We are talking about something, the beneficial ownership register. What we are asking is the government and some partners in Kenya, our local partners in Kenya, are pushing for that, and there's a proposal to the executive for us to develop a beneficial ownership register under the Companies Act, so that we know who, in terms of wealth taxation, who gets what, because the Kenya Revenue Authority can only tax when they know how much you earn and where is your money. So sometimes they know how much, but they don't know where to get the money.
Absolutely. And remember, by the way, if you look at it technically, KRA doesn't really like tax from thin air. They actually, so you do your return. So, and they expect you to do that. And there is a lot of voluntary part of it. Because, you're a company, you're operating, obviously if they come to your place and audit you, they will uncover skeletons. So most people proactively file their returns, and of course they can hide some things behind there. But in general, the KRA is organized in such a way that first you file, but they also want to be able to see behind the scenes, and that's why the beneficiary ownership.
The second item, again, part of transparency, is the issue of automatic exchange of information between countries.
Yes.
So this stems from a problem that generally over time, these multinational companies, what they've been doing, the reason why they've been successful in doing those transfer prices,
Yes.
Transfer price mechanism,
Yes.
is because most governments across Africa or globally,
Yeah.
we treat their subsidiaries as individual entities
Yes.
instead of considering it as a whole. So if I have Netflix,
Yes.
Netflix Kenya, so what they will do, they will bring Netflix Kenya, Netflix Uganda, and all that. And then because of that, they are able to transfer their profits across the world.
Yes.
And because I don't know how much you are getting from Kenya, you are getting from Uganda,
Yes.
there is no automatic exchange, especially when it comes to bank accounts.
Yes.
So it's important that we are urging, and this is something also we are pushing through the East African Parliament, that we need, at least in our region, to ensure that we have automatic exchange of information, especially on banking systems.
Okay.
So that we know, and it provides our revenue authorities with ability now to impound these people. Then thirdly, there's issue connected to that also. There's something called country-to-country reporting.
Yes.
So it's also connected with that issue of having so many subsidiaries, that if there was a possibility of doing a unitary tax, whereby if it's, let's say, Mango International,
Yes.
International,
Yes.
this Mango International, if I report to you that at this particular country they have this number of staff, this is how much they are making, and this is how much tax they are paying, then it will be easy to ensure that from this country to another country, they don't transfer their profits there. And because from this particular country, you don't have enough tax or people in that particular country
Yes.
who can steal the money.
Absolutely.
And that one speaks also with the issues, for example, of the double taxation agreements that we are reviewing. That, for example, Kenya and Mauritius, you'll find most of the companies, because Mauritius is a low tax country,
Yeah.
so they tax maybe 5%, 10%. For us, it's 30%.
Yes.
So you'll find, unfortunately, I can use the example of Nakumatt because it went under.
Yeah.
That's how they were operating. They had formed a company in Mauritius, and all their profits were transferred to Mauritius.
Wow.
So when it came now, they were spending the money in Mauritius, and then it fell here because of that same problem. And most of the countries, companies here are doing that. Finally,
Yes, they're going to be finally, because we are wrapping up.
There are so many things that we are pushing for.
Yeah.
And this one also talks to the need of us now coming up with progressive tax systems internally in countries.
Yes.
That ensures that we don't focus on taxing the consumption.
Yes.
And targeting the poor.
Yes.
Because VATs, all consumption taxes are regressive in nature.
Yes.
They disproportionately affect the poor.
Yes.
So we need to have these wealth taxes
Yes.
that are coming up, because if people can have money, they can spend. And during the COVID period, they say the top 10 at least tripled their wealth during the COVID period.
Absolutely.
And inequality increased by, we had new people, like 5 million Africans who went into extreme poverty during the last 2 years. In Kenya, the number is close to 500,000.
That's a very sad story. That's a very sad story. So, and you're saying, among all the many problems that we need to resolve, we need to ensure that we are able to, tighten our policies,
Yes.
and close the gaps, so that then we have a policy and a taxation system that actually is pro-poor. And do you think, I'm going to throw this as the final thing, the hustler, debate, again ties into this. And is it just enough to put money in people's pockets, or should we actually maybe do that by encouraging production and perhaps also maybe addressing issues like taxes that are consumer related? And it's a big question, but maybe you can just say one or two things, and then we wrap up.
So there are many discussions around and theories around economic development.
Yeah.
But in history, what we've seen working is when governments, because governments cannot solve all our problems. Government cannot employ all of us. For example, in Kenya, the numbers of people that can be employed are close to 900,000.
Yes.
In terms directly into government. Government cannot give all of us sustainable money.
Yes.
But what government can do, and which is perfect, and we see it across the country, the antidote to poverty is usually development in terms of infrastructure and bringing a conducive environment.
Absolutely. I'm going to cut you there because I think that's a very good place for us to stop.
Yeah.
Infrastructure and conducive environment.
Yes.
Create the environment.
Yes.
We will be fine.
We will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to wrap this up. And it's been a very, very interesting conversation. I hope you've learned a lot. You've learned from my guest, Rogers. If you'd like to get in touch with him, please, we're going to put some links in this video on the YouTube line, and that you can also call the number on the screen, and I can link you up to Rogers. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. This has been the Gigi Report, and I'm very, very happy. Thank you very much, Rogers, for coming.